And at 9:30, we continue coverage on the killing of Charlie Kirk. The shooting raising urgent questions about political violence and the health of our democracy.
To help us make sense of it, we are joined by Dr. Ruth Braunstein, a Johns Hopkins sociologist whose work examines civic engagement and how everyday Americans respond in times of deep division. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's start with this. How does this shooting fit into the broader pattern of political violence that we've been seeing, not just recently, but over a long period of time here in the U.S.?
So we've definitely seen increasing threats and actual violence and harassment against political leaders, elected and not, over the past several years. And this is something that has happened at previous times in American history. 1968 stands out as a high water point in recent memory. And these things ebb and flow, and we're certainly in a period of flow right now.
Of course, referring to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. back in '68. But what does an attack like this, in your opinion, do to the public trust in our institutions? And also, does it discourage people from participating in civic life?
Absolutely. It has a tremendous chilling effect on people's willingness to go into political life, to stand up and speak out for what they believe in. And that, I think, we see in reticence of young people to go into public service. And so that certainly is true. I think that it also is a vicious cycle where it's really distrust in political institutions that can sometimes drive people to these acts of violence as solutions to problems that they think cannot be fixed through traditional political channels. And then that, of course, leads to further division that could further erode trust in our institutions.
Now, you mentioned the word divisions. You've studied this. How do citizens navigate deep divisions and this polarization that's taking place? Because it seems like it's in another level now.
It is. You know, I think that a decade ago, I was having a lot of conversations about the incivility of our political discourse. And within that period of time, we very rarely talk about incivility, and we're now talking about violence. And so that this really has escalated to a point that is, you know, on another level, as you say. And I think that, you know, one of the things that is important as we sort of are at this high temperature of our politics right now is leadership that is working to lower that temperature, right? To do everything that they can to turn down that temperature, to ask people to take a beat and process this in a way that does not further inflame the divisions.
You know, do you see signs of hope in your research, maybe moments where people are still trying to come together across, in this case, party lines to strengthen the democracy as a whole?
I do. And I think that there's a lot of examples of that happening on the ground. If we're just looking at how these debates play out online, we see an elevated and much more combative version of these conversations. But there are groups on the ground that work together across divides to solve problems. There are, you know, people who do, you know, get along with people who are politically different from themselves. Like this is not as bad as Twitter makes it look. But certainly those online debates do shape people's perceptions of the world and make people much more reticent to engage in political conversation.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today. We'll leave it right there at this moment. So we appreciate you diving into this for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
She mentioned 1968, a volatile year. Also, of course, assassinated that day presidential candidate RFK.
Right.
So yeah, it's hard to believe that we're at this moment once again, but sadly, we're no stranger to political violence.
Right. We had the shooting that took place in Minnesota with the elected officials there. We had the incident with the Pelosi's out in California. So yes, it does seem to be escalating to another level. We'll be right back.